All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Lori Charlton. Welcome to the Board of Finance public budget hearing. I'll call the meeting to order and ask that we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our colleague, Mr. Testani, will lead us. Thank you. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to give my colleagues a chance to introduce themselves. Mr. DeWitt, do you want to start and we can go down the line?
Good morning, Chris DeWitt, Board of Finance.
Good morning, John Matola, Board of Finance. The Vice Chair, share that.
Good morning, Craig Curley, Board of Finance.
Good morning, Sheila Barney, Board of Finance. I'm Secretary.
Kevin Stark, Board of Finance.
Jack Testani, Board of Finance.
All right. Well, we have a very small crowd today, so I want to thank everyone who was motivated to come out on a Saturday morning. I see all familiar faces here, so you probably all know that the purpose of this hearing is to hear from the public. We're not here, it's not a town hall style meeting. We're not going to do Q&A. We just want to hear from anyone who has comments on the budget, your thoughts, your concerns, your comments. And depending on what we hear, the board members may want to say something at the end. So if there's anyone out there that would like to come and make a statement, the mic is here. Come on up, state your name and address for the record, and make your comment. Thank you.
Good morning, Jeff Peterson, 133 Martin Avenue. I'm also the liaison from the Board of Ed to the Board of Finance. I really just want to thank you for your very diligent attention to the budget this year. We came before you about 2 weeks ago, I think, with our presentation. I think you asked some very interesting questions. I understand that we're coming before you on Monday for some follow-up, and we're happy to do that. I really just want to advocate for the budget to be sent to you. We believe that it is an amount that meets our needs for the coming school year. We've made a lot of changes that I think we're going to ask a lot of questions about. It's a budget that we stand behind. We voted 8-1 in favor, and the one that was a narrow objection as we discussed. So again, thank you for your work. We stand ready to answer whatever follow-up questions you have. We'll just encourage you to approve our budget as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Jacobson, Chair of the Board of Education. Thank you for holding this meeting and allowing for the public to have this opportunity to speak with you this morning. And I echo Mr. Peterson's statement in terms of appreciation of the diligence and the questions that you've taken, not the whole town budget, including the Board of Education. So, don't know if this morning is a testament to the fact that we feel that we put before you a very tight budget. And that we hope that you will support our budget as it's been sent to you this evening. Again, happy to come before you again on Monday night and answer any follow-up questions. But we have a lot of work to do going forward next year and into the future. We have the pandemic, and we did make a lot of changes, as Mr. Peterson mentioned. And so I'm just here to advocate and be here as a member of the board and as a resident of our town who cares about our district and our students and the town as a whole. So I appreciate your time. And look forward to our future conversation, hopefully improving our budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Could you just give your address for the record, please?
40 Victoria Court. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we have some extra donuts up here. Welcome. If you'd like to make a statement on the budget, please come on up to the mic. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Elaine Thomas Davis, 206 Farmington Ave. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my co-education, Board of Education representative, Michelle Walker, for McKinley Middle School, McKinley Elementary School PTA. And Michelle could not be here this morning, so she asked that I share her statement. If that's okay. Okay. My name is Michelle Walker. I am the mother of 3 children, 2 at McKinley School and 1 who will be entering McKinley as a kindergartner this fall. As a parent of elementary-aged children, I regularly see how essential our schools are in our community. After a lockdown and a year of hybrid learning, my older boys were in kindergarten and 2nd grade during that time. Our schools need more money, more resources, and more educated professionals in the buildings to support the children of Fairfield. This is not the year to cut any resources. We need to retain our excellent staff and continue to build up our schools. Many people in town live in Fairfield for the excellent school systems. This is one of the reasons why my family is here. Investing in our schools is an investment in the future of Fairfield. And my statement is, I am a grandmother who is raising her 11-year-old grandchild along with my husband. We raised our 2 children in Fairfield who went through the Fairfield school system. As a grandmother and my husband as a grandfather, he's on a fixed income. It's tough. It's really tough. We make a lot of sacrifices to keep our granddaughter in McKinley Elementary School. I ask that you support the budget as stands. Please do not cut the budget. We need the resources, especially when, as grandparents, raising a grandchild with very little support. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to make a statement?
Good morning, John Wynn, Harbor Road. Thank you all for your service. I know the budget season is a big test and strain on all of you at the time and the detail you go through. Our community, we have a safe community, we have an attractive community, and an affordable community. Those are 3 key dynamics of desirable community. We're making the right kind of investments to keep ourselves safe with investments in police and fire. We're making the right kind of investments to have the attractiveness that draws people to our community. We make tremendous investments in our school. We continue to struggle with affordability. constantly raising budgets for education, for town operations, causes the mill rate to go up, and that causes a strain to many people in the community, many people on fixed income, such as the individual you just heard from, and people in all of the age demographics we have. So we're making great investments, but we continue to struggle with that affordability aspect of things. One thing I note in this year's budget is the interest income has gone up quite significantly. That has the potential to create a cliff for future years' spending and deceive us into thinking we're managing the budget the right way, creating budget spending that we have, but then cause a problem in the future for future spending, future affordability, future taxes. Additionally, with the recent events in the banking industry, I noticed a significant exposure to the town and how we manage our financial resources, our cash in the banks. And I question whether we concentrate too much money in certain banks, certain local banks, which might put us at risk when we have that large pool of cash resources generating interest income. And if it's a banking problem, we have it in the wrong bank, or we can have a problem. So I urge consider monitoring that issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Christine Vitale, 254 Vernon Hill Road. Thank you for holding this public budget forum. I know that year to year the amount of people that come varies, but I think it's still an important exercise to have, so I appreciate you taking the time. I'm not going to reiterate what my colleague said. I'm hoping that you approve the Board of Education budget as presented. I'm really here to speak on behalf of the school nurses. I listened to your budget meeting. They do support our public schools, and I want to advocate for them. They have been, I don't think I'd have to tell you how invaluable they have been these past, always, but over the past 2 years, just dealing with the pandemic, all of the coordination around testing, providing guidance to families, and now in the aftermath, we're still dealing with various respiratory illnesses this year that have hit the schools hard, but also some of just the mental health challenges. The nursing sometimes the place a first step. Our nurses have been getting some training in anxiety and how to identify and help our students. And as shared by Ms. Mitchell and the superintendent, we do have some students with increased medical needs. And I think it would be very foolish to not give our school nurses the support they need. So I am speaking on behalf of them, and thank you for your time. Thank you, Ms. Vitale. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay. Well, thank you again to everyone for showing up in this not so great weather on a Saturday morning. We appreciate it. I want to give my colleagues a chance to make any statements they would like to about the budget or anything that they've heard today. Mr. DeWitt, let's start with you.
Still on. Good morning. Thank you again. Maybe a few comments only, but I think meaningful comments, so thank you all for that. I share your concerns, Mr. Wayne, especially when Silicon Valley Bank, we hear about those kind of issues happening in the country, and believe me, we're deliberating exactly what you're talking about. I'd like to think, Jerry was joking a little while before. I said nobody's here because you guys are doing such a great job. But I'd like to think that there's a low amount of attendance here today because this is not that controversial of a budget. It's below 1% growth. I think the Board of Education increase was modest. I think the decrease by the first select woman was modest as well. And I think there's a lot of positive things that I'm personally seeing in town. And I'm really hoping that we're gonna wrap up Monday with a probably really long meeting with a bunch of data. But I like to think that this budget is going to go through pretty easily and much to the credit of the administration and I think to the positive effect for our. So thank you all for coming.
Tola. We are meeting Monday. We'll go through some pretty heavy topics. Have some adjustments between the second. I'm very confident that this entire board will be unified on this year's budget. Longer than we are throughout the years I've been before. Had some differences in opinions a couple of times. But I'm confident that because of our hard work, the hard work of the administration, and you know what, the hard work of this board for a number of years, quite frankly, we're in good shape with FairTV. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to pass this budget together as one group and send it on to the RT. So thank you very much for coming out tonight. And it's my mindset this morning, and it doesn't hurt me. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Craig Curley. I also want to thank the folks who came out tonight, and for those who were not able to make it today, perhaps they're out there in YouTube land. I agree with the thought that this was a relatively clean budget. There were some items that needed attention, and we certainly debated those and discussed those. But I want to thank the Board of Education and the superintendent who put together a very detailed budget this year. There were some changes in your methodology that were appreciated, and I think that was reflected in a very solid and sound budget. So thank you for the effort. I also want to thank all the department heads who came out and met with us. We had a very robust Q&A throughout this month of March on a number of items, including the interest income that was mentioned earlier in the concentration of where that money sits. But overall, I think that the diligence that this board went through with the assistance of the department heads was really a healthy process. I also want to thank specifically thank Frank Laneri and the finance department for really doing an excellent job putting together the budget itself. I think the process has gone very smooth for us as we've reviewed, and certainly we're putting a lot of hours in, but that effort on the front end has helped us as well. So overall, this has been a very positive process. I do think that the lack of robust attendance today does indicate that this is not necessarily a controversial budget this year, and overall it's been very positive, so thank you again.
Thank you, Sheila Barman. I agree with pretty much everything that my colleagues have already mentioned. This is a pretty straightforward budget. I have not received any emails, frankly, on this budget from people. Nothing. It's the majority of the emails I've gotten are all around Huntsville Pavilion, which has been a funding issue, but not related to this budget. So there are some investments that I really support in this budget, and that's funding the social worker, continuing to fund the social worker to support the police department. Also increasing salaries for the part-time library workers. I think that's really important for us to remain competitive. Also, as Ms. Vitale said, the supporting adding to our nursing staff to help with school-based needs. I think that's critically important moving forward. We also are looking at adding a new captain to the ECC, and I think that makes a lot of sense to make sure that really runs smoothly. So from a budget standpoint, I fully support that, and I want to thank everybody for coming out, and also thank my colleagues, because I really think the quality of the questions and the conversation and the dialogue has been excellent, and we've really been able to work collaboratively together to make this whole budget process run smoothly. Thank you also to the administration and also to Frank and the finance team for putting together this process, the Google sheets for questioning, so we don't have to repeat ourselves or go through details that have already been, go through getting answers to questions that have already been answered. I think that's worked really well. So thank you.
Kevin Stark. I'll just speak quickly to the points on interest income and the risk of bank failure. Two things I actually know quite a bit about. Those are very good points, and some things I've learned this budget season that may be helpful in response are that in terms of interest rate risk, the town actually has a stated policy of not investing in instruments longer than 4.5 years duration, which means that you don't get into the kinds of duration mismatches that have caused Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank to fail. And then in terms of risk of bank failure, the saving grace is that typically our fund balances are swept out to money market accounts, which, while not riskless, are not exposed to the same risks as ordinary deposits. If you look at Silicon Valley Bank's balance sheet, it's 100-odd billion of on-balance sheet deposits and a similar amount of off-balance sheet deposits that were at no point at risk. So I would commend the administration for fairly prudent investment policies with the fund balances that we maintain.
Good morning, Jim Walsh. I also would like to thank everyone for being here today. I always love this meeting and hearing from everybody. Well, I guess personally, I'll get some time back today. I was actually looking forward to a couple of hours of hearing from the taxpayers in the town and hearing what they want and hearing what their concerns are. And I always find it very educational and I take it to heart. But I appreciate those who got up early today and are here with us today to speak. I would say that this is one of the easier budgets years we've had. I mean, a lot of it clearly has to do with the fact that it's a low tax increase. And the other part is that there really hasn't been like the rest of the Board of Education cut, despite the fact that the first selection reduced the Board of Education budget by $500,000. There's clearly savings of at least that amount that we found, so really it's going to be a net zero to that. So for those reasons, I think it's the reason why, as some others said before, why there's not as many people in the room. I would like to commend our first select woman, Brenda Kupchik, and her administration, the department heads, and for everybody for being able to continue to bring in for the last 4 years very low budget increases, historically very low, below the rate of inflation. So, but that takes a lot of work, and it takes work by the Board of Education. So I'd like to thank the Board of Education, the Central Administration, the administrators, teachers, paras, and nurses as well. So, but I'd like to note as well that, as a few others mentioned before me, the hard work, unbelievably hard work, that Ms. Laborious does for the Board of Education in regards to the budget, but also the Town of Fairfield's Finance Department, specifically our CFO, Jared Schmidt, Frank Maneri, who's been a fresh light in regards to the budget, in regards to making changes this board wanted to have made, and made the budget look a lot better. And also to Kate Foxy, who's very involved with the budget as well. They do excellent work. I'd like to thank the Board of Education on the paraprofessionals, giving them a new contract and paying them a living wage, well over 50. And in regards to the nurses, I think it's great we're adding nurses. It was interesting to hear the reasons why we're using nurses. But I would suggest that more training go with the nurses, because I was surprised to hear during our budget meeting the skyrocketing number of children who are attending seeing nurses with mental health issues. but yet it was unclear to me whether they're properly trained in mental health issues. So I think they should get the extra training they need because it concerns me with that many people and that increase that I'm just afraid someone's going to be overlooked on a mental health issue. So hopefully we can get them more training. And I'd like to share, I know others have commented about it, but John Wayne's comments, I appreciate those. I too share your concerns. This year's budget and the low increases have a lot to do with the high extra interest revenue we're going to be getting from the administration properly, looking to make more money on our cash, like lots of cash, like over $100 million of cash. So going from getting under 1% and now getting over 3.5%, and using Janny, not putting the money at risk, like putting it into individual banks. I think that was a great thing that we hired Janny to be our advisor. In previous years, going back over multiple administrations, cash was kind of managed on a ad hoc basis. We had a CD or some other type of vehicle that would expire. We need to reinvest the money, and people would just call up the local bank and see who had the highest interest rate back then. It wasn't a proper way over the time, and I think we've now finally have the expertise, and I think this Board of Finance feels much better that we're having real professional management of the large amounts of cash that we have for various reasons. But in regards to the interest income, which is great, this budget in a lot of ways is built on the extra interest we're going to be getting, millions of dollars. And as Mr. Wayne said, things are going to change over time, and they will create cliffs. And so there is spending in this budget. It's just being covered sometimes by a lot of interest income, which we're lucky to be able to get this year. So those are my only comments for this year's budget. I appreciate everyone coming out again, and we'll see it more of our meetings.
Hey everyone, I'm Jack Testani. I want to echo a lot of my colleagues' comments. Certainly thank everyone for coming. We did, as a couple of my colleagues pointed out, receive emails periodically, during the budget season. And I want to start actually with Mr. Wayne's comments as well as Mr. Walsh alluded to. Anytime there's a mill rate increase, it affects all of us, especially those people that are concerned about their budgets, their spending. So it's something we all look at very carefully. I'm sure I can speak for the other board members when we say even a 0.98% proposed increase to the mill rate is something we still pay attention to. And having said that, there have been other years, again, as Mr. Walsh alluded to, where this budget increase is minimal by comparison. So I wanted to start with that because, again, as a taxpayer, it's something of concern of mine. However, having said that, I also want to thank Brenda, Jared, Franklin, Jerry, all the people that you've heard about, because certainly in my time on the Board of Finance, this by far is the most efficient, best use of the town's resources that I've seen. We've had department heads come in front of us that a few of my colleagues alluded to, the police, the fire, town engineering, certainly human resources, all presented budgets that were, again, in my opinion, far superior in terms of their efficiencies, how they were allocating manpower, how they were dictating what was going to be spent, either on the revenue line or the budget expense line. That was really, I think, differential from other years, vastly improved from what I was able to talk about during a lot of our budget seasons. I also wanted to point out to the Board of Ed, and it's been noted by quite a few of my colleagues, what a great budget this particular year was in terms of, again, presenting different efficiencies, different ways with which the other Mr. Testani helped to structure this budget. So it got to a point where I think our chair had to say either Mike or Jack, because it got a little confusing on which Mr. Testani was speaking a couple of times. Having said that, again, I think he and the other board members obviously presented a very efficient budget. I know Mr. Walsh alluded to Ms. Laborious, and I think she's a phenomenal person in terms of the Board of Ed's budget. So I just want to say that it's something to be noted that the administration has taken these strides, and a lot of what has been instituted has only helped the town of Fairfield. And I've been very encouraged as one board member to say that we have a lot of cash on hand that we've been speaking about with regard to the interest income. We've taken a lot of the protections that Mr. Stark alluded to that helps us with some of the concerns that we shared, Mr. Wayne, with the SVB collapse, the Silicon Valley collapse. So again, it's something we're all aware of, and I know I can speak on behalf of us all where we say that we're very cognizant of our AAA credit rating. We're one of only a few communities in the entire state of Connecticut, all 159 towns and cities. I believe there's only less than 24 that have the AAA credit rating, and certainly one I know we're all proud of, and I know we all pay careful attention to. So certainly, the health of our cash, the health of our budgets, what our long-term debt is, what kind of capital spending we have on the horizon with regard to our wish list, so to speak, as far as what the town would like to implement, are all things that we're going to be paying close attention to. So again, I want to thank everyone, thank the administration, and thank the Board of Ed for what I think has been a phenomenal budget season. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank my colleagues here with me today for all the work that they do. It's been a lot of long nights and a lot of homework getting ready for each one of those long meetings. I also do want to acknowledge our other colleague, Mary LeClaire, who could not be here today. This is her busy season, and so she typically misses this meeting, but she's also a very key and valued member of our board. I want to thank the town administration for, as my colleagues have mentioned, putting together not only an excellent budget book, but if you are a data person and you want to get into the numbers, I hope that you will take the opportunity to look at some of the supplemental information that's being posted on the Board of Ed webpage. One of the improvements that was made to the process this year is that all of our Q&A that's been submitted in advance has been collected in one place, attachments with a lot of detail that has not previously been available publicly, because it used to get passed around on emails in the past. And so there's really a wealth of information there for residents who want to understand the budget. So I thank the town, and in particular our new budget director, Frank Manieri, for doing all that work, as well as the first selectwoman and the CFO. Fairfield Public Schools, we have a new superintendent this year. I thought the presentation was outstanding. It was understandable, it was detailed, and I thought we had a very productive discussion. And as my colleague Mr. Walsh said, one of the significant increases in that budget was to get our para-educators up to a wage that is competitive with the surrounding communities and is a living wage. So I fully support that. In terms of my thoughts on the overall budget, I have maybe a little bit different take on it. I do agree with Mr. Mottola that I think and I hope our board will be united. And I do think there's the reason that there is less controversy around the budget this year is because of the headline of less than a 1% increase. But I think it's important to understand how you get to that 1%. And I really appreciated Mr. Wynn's comments, because a 1% increase in the mill rate is not the same as what the increase in spending is, which is closer to 4% overall. And we have a couple things that account for that gap. It's not just interest income. There is substantial interest income in the budget this year, and it'll probably be, I think the administration will propose to actually or recommend that we might even increase that amount, because currently we have roughly $60 million in a money market account that they have not budgeted any interest for. So interest income has helped offset some of the additional spending, but there's other things. Debt service is a couple $1 million lower, and it has been trending lower, and we've benefited from bond premiums that we've been amortizing just because of changes in the bond market and the interest rate environment. Our grand list continues to grow. That helps offset the spending. We've taken advantage of some other things. The past 2 years we've paid for police cars out of a special fund that doesn't come out of the general fund budget. That offsets spending, but that's not going to last forever. Our risk management fund, we didn't, there's nothing in the initial budget this year for that. So that's another thing that offsets spending. And the reason I mention these things is just out of a sense of caution, because these are benefits that are not sustainable in the long run, to Mr. Wynn's point. So that gap between the spending and the mill rate is something that I think we've all focused on this board, and that I think deserves a sense of caution. The other thing is the past couple of years we've gotten away from funding surplus in our fund balance, something that has been historically done. So, these are things that help you get to a low tax rate, but at some point they can turn around on you. And I think, what a lot of the discussion the board has had about some of these issues is trying to make sure that we are not only helping to support a budget that's affordable for taxpayers, but something that's sustainable and that benefits this town for the long run. Getting to a low budget just kind of by squeezing out the balance sheet is not something that is sustainable for the long run. So as we move forward, and particularly on Monday when we have a lot of follow-up items, I think we're going to hear about some of these issues. To the extent that we take a look at that interest income and that number goes higher, I personally would advocate for setting that money aside in reserves, like fund balance or funding risk management, because those are things that are going to become important to us in the future, and they're part of maintaining fiscal health for the town over the long run. So that's just my personal opinion. So I think, again, it's it's a good budget. I think it's a reasonable budget, and with an increase that's much lower than the rate of inflation. But I do think it's important to understand how those pieces add up, to approach it with a sense of prudence and conservatism and caution, because we are, facing some uncertain times ahead. I think we're only beginning to see the impact of some of these macroeconomic factors that are impacting all of us. The recent bank failures were one thing. That is going to spread to the real estate market eventually. Higher interest rates will impact that segment of the market, and it will trickle from there. And perhaps higher tax rates, outside of the town, federal and state. So all of those are risks in the future that make it important that we continue our focus on the long-term fiscal health and stability of our town, as well as the budget that's before us. And again, I want to thank my colleagues for all of the input and all of the discussion that we've had on all of these things. It is, to me, part of the value of this board, and what I found valuable is serving with some members here who have been part of this body for many years. And the perspective that they bring and the experience that they bring has taught me a lot. It brings a lot of value to the town. And so I would like to, thank them for what they bring, for the work they do. And I want to thank all of you again for showing up on this rainy Saturday morning. We appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. I will move to adjourn. Second, Mr. Curley, in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.